go through them, and so we all know what they are. Column header wrapping, that one should hopefully be self-explanatory. That's the option that we've been talking about to allow your column headers to wrap instead of just truncating to one line. Separate option from reportable to control visibility in the columns panel. We talked about that one very first, where you are, that reportable setting is the only way, other than if the user doesn't have permission to see a field, to control if it appears in that columns panel. Rules engine for grid reports, that is going to be basically the equivalent of form rules for grid reports. So that's been a very popular feedback item since open beta, where folks want a little bit more granular control or more dynamic control over what is editable in grid reports. These are shifting new column properties options. That is the ability to do that record picker override that we talked about for just your grid report, or also the ability to make something. Oh, I think that there's actually a typo on here. It should say required rather than reportable. The column properties option would be the option to make something required at the report level rather than at the field level. I'm sure that was on me, Esther, before I sent this to you. Then the default report option to enable or disable inline editing. We just looked at that one. That one is, again, the ability to control table by table. If you want to say all the reports in this table by default do not allow inline editing, that will allow you to do that, which is not yet available. And then the option to reset your columns to the width, your default widths. That will be, that just allow you, that solves the problem where if I have already adjusted my column, I can no longer see what the default width was unless I create a new report. And then the ability to iframe grid reports, which should be pretty self-explanatory. Right now, you see if you iframe, if you add, and IFE equals 1 to the end of your URL for a form or for a standalone report, you don't see our new grid reports. You see one of the other two experiences. And on these, I think Ben answered this question in the chat. I maybe saw it out of the corner of my eye, but there are some minimum spends. This is to help illustrate some of the scale of these projects. They're not sort of one-to-one, right? Where if I want the ability to iframe grid reports is quite a small item and quite a small lift from engineering. If we want to build an entire rules engine for grid reports that spans all of these experiences and gives you as dynamic control as we have over form rules, that is going to be a much, much bigger effort. So on that one, we are asking that if you prioritize that, you have to spend at least $80 on that. You have to spend $80 of your QuickBooks on it. You can't sort of, I think Ryan Murray always says peanut butter it. Can't peanut butter across where you put like $10 on all of these things. So similar story with pivot table capabilities. Oh, sorry, I must have missed that one in all of the shifting. But basically, pivot table capabilities would be the ability, it's similar to Excel, bringing that sort of pivot summary experience into grid reports. It's not something that is currently available, but something that we could consider with our new framework. So are we final here? I've seen things shift a little bit. Seems like rules engine is our top one. Column header wrapping is next. Anybody want to come off mute and speak to sort of their top item, their prioritization here, why they feel so strongly about any of these items in particular?
So if I may here, Alice.
Yeah.
If someone were saying, and it looks like 28 people have said this, rules engine, they're also at the same time saying, oh, these other things can come after that because the product team would likely have to commit a lot of resources to get this done first.
Great call out. Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we are, just like anyone else, we have finite time and resources. So if we are prioritizing the rules engine, that's why we tried to enforce this minimum spend here, then that means it comes at the expense of prioritizing these other things. So absolutely.
So I think that this is Jim, looking at these different options and what's going to make the experience for the users have the most impact. I get column header wrapping is important, but I think from a usability and a user experience, that the ability to sort of give people what they're people can move the columns and make them bigger and smaller. So it feels like that's not as big of a priority as being able to sort of say, yes, you can enter here, but you can't enter here, or you know, if you put something in there, it changes this over there, that kind of stuff. I think that really creates a better user experience. And also, once it's in place, it's going to be hard. I agree. And that I totally volunteer to like help if in any way. I'll edit reports or whatever. But just to get it right and to get it to a point where it's solid and then move on and do whatever you want, I think that would be an epic move. I know it's a hard move, but you know, those are my thoughts on it.
Nice. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's helpful to know. Does anyone really disagree with Jim that they feel strongly that like, my God, I need that column header wrapping before we do anything else, for example?
I look at it. We haven't had it this long.
Well, we've, that's been, less than a month, so it hasn't been that long.
Hi, this is Allie. I just had a question on like the new gridded updates. So as I'm kind of going through, I'm seeing some impacting to, I guess, efficiency when I'm adding data, like the copy and paste function. It takes like 2 or 3 times to paste in data before it somehow reads it or wants to enter it. Another item that I'm seeing is like dates. We use a lot of dates on our end, and before we could just type it in instead of going back to the little box where you have to actually go in the calendar to click. And so the same function, it takes like 5 times to read. Sometimes you can't see the full date of what you're even typing, so you're kind of just guessing and hoping I didn't fat finger it. Another item that I'm seeing is the filter visibility, where, and maybe you addressed it and I kind of came in a little late, but you used to have filters on top where maybe it was like 5 that we could pick from that are no longer there, that really helped with our editing and navigating, just because we have so much different data fields. I guess with those, are those being addressed, and are there, things that I could do to mitigate that happening, just because it does take time and efficiency away from what we're doing?
Yeah. So I think a couple of the things that you're running into, like copy paste not registering or dates not taking your edits initially, those sound like straight up bugs. So I would ask you to submit those through tech support so they can get escalated up to our team and we can work on them. The third item, which was dynamic filters, they no longer appear along the top in sort of those 5 chiclets, but they do appear on the right. There's I looked at the columns panel a bunch in the demo today, but right above that, there's the dynamic filters option. That's where those have moved to. So it's a little bit different, but hopefully it's the exact same fields and you now have more filter functionality available there. So hopefully that kind of alleviates that. But if there are issues with dates or copy paste, we definitely want to know about them so we can fix them. Those just sound like bugs, Allie.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to say, I do, just for feedback, I do like the ones on top because it is quick. And I think the ones on the side, because I did notice those, it's like an extra step to open, then see it. So it's just like an added step. Just for feedback purposes, I do think having, a top 5 filter that you look at every day for reporting purposes was an easy, let me just go to it, let me just see it, drop down impact. That was nice to have.
Yeah, I hear you. It's again balancing. So with our new filters, there is much more capability. So you can use different operators, you can stack them, like you can have up to like 10 filter conditions in a single filter. You can do things that you could never do with just the quick like 5 filters. But the trade-off is that it is a little bit more clicky, and it is a little bit more it takes a little bit more of your sort of brain power to implement.
Yeah,
but it is more powerful. So it's, everything's a trade-off.